Hi, my name is Peter Webb. The Berkshire Hathaway AGM is fondly known around the world as Woodstock for capitalists. The following is my story of what it's like to attend the Berkshire Hathaway AGM and why it brings so many people to Omaha, Nebraska every year.
Welcome to Bloomberg Tomorrow Tonight. A look at the stories that will be making headlines tomorrow. I'm Charlie Pellet.
I told him everything I knew.
I can't get into what they did.
Whatever you say to investigators is supposed to stay private.
Warren Buffett, earlier this month on being questioned by regulators about a transaction between his General Reinsurance Company and AIG. Now, tomorrow, Buffett will be in Omaha for the highly anticipated Berkshire Hathaway Shareholders meeting. And the event, which is a kind of festival for followers of the so-called Oracle of Omaha, is a bit different this year because of the questioning of the CEO in the AIG probe. Still, says shareholder Peter Webb, it will be an enjoyable gathering.
I suppose it's a big get-together of almost of a brotherhood, really, I suppose. With 20-odd thousand people, it's difficult to describe it as a family any longer, I think. But, yeah, it's a great meeting to meet like-minded people and to get an appreciation of what Buffett and Berkshire stands for and to sort of go along with those goals.
Well, in your view, then, what does Berkshire and Buffett stand for?
Well, for me, Buffett really stands for doing business the right way and having a good outlook on investment in general. I think for many years, a lot of people, especially with situations like Enron and WorldCom, have always felt that perhaps chief executives could act a little bit more circumspect in their dealings with shareholders and investors, and I think that Buffett delivers that fairly consistently.
Yeah, as for doing business the right way, certainly this weekend's meeting is going to be different given the regulatory probes.
I think it'll be interesting. I think a lot of people are going to turn up this weekend and look for the opportunity to ask Buffett questions on AIG and Hank Greenberg and everything surrounding that. But I think in the way that Buffett has generally done business in the past, he tends to have an arm's length from most of the operating companies that he deals with. So I think most people will be seeking some reassurance on that. So I've left myself fairly open-minded, and we'll see what comes out of this weekend.
Can you remember a time, though, when Buffett and Berkshire faced so much scrutiny?
I can't, no. I suppose with Salomon Brothers in the early 90s, it wasn't particularly Buffett under the cosh at that particular point, but nonetheless, there was that was a fairly pivotal moment, I think, in his career. That could have gone either way, and he shone through that. They actually showed a small clip of Buffett and the Salomon issue last year, so it'll be interesting to see what they choose for their introduction video this year.
As a Berkshire shareholder, are you concerned that Buffett might have some personal liability in the AIG transactions?
I don't believe that he has, but maybe my view's tainted on that, having been a shareholder. But in my heart of hearts, I believe that he probably would have entered into the transaction with General Re and realized that there's a lot of stuff that he can't have his hands on. But it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. But I'm keeping my faith with Buffett.
How much of Warren Buffett is tied up in Berkshire Hathaway, and what happens when Buffett leaves the company?
It's a question that seems to come up every year, and every year Buffett always says, don't worry about it, I have a successor planned, and everything will continue thereafter. My reaction is that if Buffett did decide to give up the chairmanship for one reason or another, then necessarily I think the market would probably react badly to that. But with the appointment of Bill Gates, and he has successors like Lou Simpson, that could quite easily take up his helm, I believe. But at some point, and Warren's been very open about this, he will die, and the whole situation will pass on again. So I suppose it's a question. My belief is that Berkshire Hathaway is a way rather than a thing. So I think Buffett is trying his best to ensure that method or that mode of operation continues.
Do you think then Buffett has told investors enough about his succession plans?
No, because if people wouldn't keep asking it year after year if he came out and told everybody exactly what he had planned. But I think that's much of the style of Buffett. He keeps his cards close to his chest. I read the Buffett partnership letters not so long ago, and he was the same back in the 50s and 60s that he is now, in terms of he obviously wants to retain control of the company and stamp his personal authority on it. And I'm sure that he has the issue of succession wrapped up, but he hasn't. I don't believe that people feel comfortable with that. Otherwise, they wouldn't keep asking the question.
What do you make of the recent investment in Anheuser-Busch? Is that consistent with previous Buffett investments?
It's going to be a question that's going to come up this weekend, and it's a question of really whether Buffett has bought Anheuser-Busch or not, because it could be any one of his portfolio managers that has entered into that transaction. So I don't know if Buffett has confirmed whether it was him directly or not that had been involved in that purchase. But whenever there's a big purchase like this, there's a flurry of communication between shareholders trying to analyze why somebody would have bought that sort of business. So certainly it has a lot of brand equity. But I suppose the question is always on, has he got a bargain here or not?
Well, speaking of additional bargains, should Buffett be looking outside the U.S. for more investments?
Personally, I believe he should. And if I get the chance to put this question to him at the weekend, then that's a question that I'll put to him, because certainly I see value elsewhere around the world outside of the U.S. And I believe any rational portfolio would surely include some of those.
Typically, how accessible is Buffett at these events? When you say you'd like to put a question to him, does he make himself available for those kinds of one-on-one sessions with shareholders?
Well, one thing that brings international shareholders back year after year is last year he decided to actually meet every single international shareholder, and he's going to do the same again this year. So for the last few months, I've been thinking about what killer question I can put to Buffett that he can answer in front of me.
Have you come up with that answer yet?
No, I'm still thinking. I have a short list of 3 or 4, and I guess on the plane up to Omaha, it will be the time when I decide exactly what that question is going to be.
What point, though, would you like to see Buffett start to return some of Berkshire's cash to shareholders?
Well, this is a question I think that will certainly come up in the meeting, because there are 2 modes of thought here. One is if he has $40 billion or more in cash, then surely that would be either deployed successfully or returned to shareholders in a normal company. But if Buffett did decide to actually use that money to buy another company, then certainly on a valuation basis, Berkshire Hathaway would look very cheap. But my guess is that Buffett probably has no intention of returning that money to shareholders, and he'll hang on to it until he can find an opportunity.
Are you happy with the share's performance this year?
It's obviously could be a lot better, but certainly in terms of most value investors, price is not as important as the value that's within the share itself. So certainly I think that there's enough value within there, but I think the price is lagging its intrinsic value at the moment.
Peter Webb heading off to his 4th Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting. Berkshire shares today up $749. 84,350, volume 760 shares. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all higher today. The S&P higher by 13 to 1156. The Dow up 122 points. NASDAQ gained 17. Coming up, a preview of next week's Fed meeting.
Once a year, Omaha, Nebraska becomes the focus of the financial world's attention. Not far from the banks of the Missouri River and what feels 1,000,000 miles from Wall Street, a city whose economy is mainly based on agriculture becomes the mecca for the financial world. It is here that 20,000 people flock each year to the best attended AGM in the world. Nicknamed Woodstock for capitalists, people come here to hear Buffett and his partner Charlie Munger talk about investing, business, and life in general, and share with others the thrill of being a Berkshire Hathaway shareholder. What is it that pulls more and more people back each year? For shareholders, the first stop of the weekend is Borsheim's, the discount jeweler that Buffett owns. Awaiting shareholders is a cocktail reception and attractive discounts on a wide variety of goods. Borsheim's itself is pretty normal size for a UK shop, but with many thousands of shareholders to serve, its walls are packed solid and ablaze with colour and the buzz of activity. Such a scene would probably fall foul of health and safety law in the UK, but here it's a smorgasbord of purchasing. Outside, the music is loud and the party in full swing. The parking lot has a large marquee. In and around it, food, drink, and conversation flow as the weekend gets underway. The most popular phrase appears to be, "How long have you held Berkshire stock?" seemingly a proxy for your intelligence and net worth. The atmosphere is festive and friendly. You feel like you are part of a big family celebrating a birthday or maybe a wedding. Much eating and drinking is done before shareholders head off to an early night, knowing that tomorrow they will need to be early risers. By 6 a.m. the following morning, there is already quite a line outside the Quest Center in downtown Omaha. Completed less than 3 years ago, it is difficult to figure out where else in Omaha such a large event could be staged. The quest center has 2 main entrances, and both lines fill up quickly. 4 or 5 people deep, they snake around the edge of the building, filling every available space. As I walk down the line, there is a cacophony of noise. Last year, an estimated 400 international shareholders visited the event, but this year there seems to be a much higher presence. At 7 a.m. the doors open and the shareholders pile in. 2 main objectives await them. 1. Get a good seat, and 2. Go shopping. Not necessarily in that order, both are fulfilled, and shortly after it was opened, the 20,000 all-seater stadium is covered with reserved signs, newspapers, seat-sitters, and huddles of shareholders. Meanwhile, at the other end of the building, Berkshire subsidiary companies have packed out a large exhibition area with their merchandise. Also present are appropriate displays, promotional material, and even food malls to fulfill the shareholders' hunger. This year sees the release of a limited edition Berkshire Hathaway Monopoly game, and the scramble for the product creates an immense rush at the Borsheim stand. An equally improbable line snakes its way out of the bookstore and far into the exhibition area, for it is here that people are desperate to get their hands on Poor Charlie's Almanac, a summary of the life and thoughts of Buffett's partner and vice chairman of Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie Munger. Board games and books are not the only items to buy. On view are carpets, clothes, paints, manufactured homes, and ice cream, to name but a few. Most vendors are doing very brisk business. Dotted around the room are also a variety of oddities, including walking bricks and a 10-foot-tall gecko who will sell you car insurance if you're not too careful. Slowly the rush dies down and people make their way into the main arena. By 8:30 a.m. the company meeting starts properly, and this year is headed by a tribute from Buffett's daughter Susie to her mother who passed away last year. After an appropriate pause for contemplation, the meeting is underway, and as always is started with a company video. Like no company video you will ever see, it represents an hour of self-depreciating humor and frivolity, interdispersed with serious messages and a brief promotion of the company's products. With the passing of the video, the main meeting starts. Starting at 9:30 and lasting for 6 hours, this is the chance for all invitees to quiz the world's second richest man face to face about anything that is on their mind, even if it is not directly related to the company. It is often light-hearted and fun. From the start, the questions follow a similar feel, as each person stands up to the microphone, and there often follows a short confession of faith in the cause before the actual question is forthcoming. Some questions are good, some are way too long, and some are just plain bizarre. Certainly, if you are to stand in front of an audience of nearly 20,000 and you address very wealthy and influential people, you should at least attempt to do yourself justice. This is what I intend to do when I take the helm with the 6th question of the session.
Number 6.
Hi, this is Peter Webb from London, UK. There's a question I wanted to ask you. I've been an investor for many years and done very well following a similar sort of style to yourself, so thank you for that. The big question I have is, over that...
You can always send us a check.
Well, if there's a deal to be had, maybe we can speak afterwards. The question that I have for yourself and Charlie is, over the time I've bought many different companies in the UK and Europe, and I've seen many American value funds buying the same companies, but I see very little activities from Berkshire and its subsidiaries, and I didn't know whether that was a reflection in your views on UK and Europe in the world, whether you just see a lack of investment opportunity, is it outside your sphere of competence, or is there some other reason that I see less activity from you in Europe?
Yeah, that's a good question. We own, of course, as you know, 80% or so of Mid-American Energy, which has a very large business in the UK, but that's an operating business. As you know, in the UK there's a rule that requires reporting when you own 3% of companies' stock, and actually there's some conditions under which the ownership will be reported even sooner than that 3%. There's a provision that I think if there's an inquiry or anything that it has to be responded to. So if you take a company with a market cap of 5 billion pounds. If we bought 150 million pounds of it, we would have to report, and that tends to mess up subsequent purchases. So we bought stock, we owned stock in Diageo, which was Guinness at the time. We've owned stock in some other UK companies, but we thought twice before going over 3% because of the reporting requirements, and then we'd have to report if we were selling and all that. So that's a deterrent, but it's not an overwhelming deterrent. And if we get a chance to buy a significant piece of something that we think is cheap, particularly if we could buy it in one purchase, but there are a lot of special rules that kick in over in the UK that do not in the United States. Incidentally, there was something in the journal the other day that said that we had to report if we bought over 5% of a company within 10 business days in the U.S. That is not true. That was a mistake in the report. But it is the case in the UK that a 3% where reporting is triggered. But we would feel very comfortable with lots of UK businesses, and they'd be the same criteria we applied over here: a durable competitive advantage and a management that we like and trust, and a reasonable price. And we have seen some of them. It was an insurance company in the UK a year or so back that I would very much have liked to have bought, but we couldn't come to terms on price. We have no bias whatsoever against buying business in the UK. And as I say, at Yorkshire and Northern Electric, we have a business that shows in our report made close to $300 million after tax. And actually, considering my views on currency, I'd give a slight edge to buying something where the earnings would be in sterling in the future rather than dollars. Charlie?
Well, I regard it as kind of amusing that we ended up preferring the currencies of Europe when it's so much more socialized than the United States is. That's a queer occurrence.
You actually prefer them or not, Charlie?
Well, certainly in over a considerable period of recent months, we've actually preferred the currencies of socialized Europe to our own currency. I just regard that as an odd occurrence for both of us. I wouldn't have happened.
No. Up till 3 years ago, if I came back from Europe and I had a euro in my pocket, I couldn't wait to run the bank or someplace. I was afraid it would depreciate before I could get rid of it. But I changed my views a few years ago. We hope to buy businesses and stocks other places in the world, and Charlie mentioned the difference in political climate. One thing, you read about slow growth in Europe and Japan and all that, and it's true. But the growth figures that you see are usually not on a per capita basis. And since the population of Europe has been generally very little change, whereas the population of the United States grows 1 or 1.5% a year, if you look at growth figures in the United States and somebody says 3 and a fraction percent, that's not on a per capita basis. I mean, you have to deflate that by the growth in population. Whereas if you read about the growth in Europe, generally, you're dealing with a population base that hasn't changed. So the differences in growth rate on a per capita basis are not as wide as the headlines would suggest.
My moment in the spotlight is over, but for many others it will come. Each shareholder has the right to ask whatever they wish, and no questions are screened or monitored before being asked. It is somewhat a double act. Buffett chortles and wisecracks his way through the proceedings, and it is obvious that he is really enjoying himself. Munger is a little more acerbic. It makes for great entertainment, though. At the close of the questions, it's not over for all shareholders. A recent addition to the meeting is the opportunity to meet Buffett and Munger personally, a real treat for overseas visitors. While security is tight and time limited, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many. Later that evening is one more event, this time at the Nebraska Furniture Mart, another Buffett purchase. They have a barbecue for all the shareholders, and we eat, drink, and chat with others before heading downtown to spend the night drifting from bars to restaurants and eventually back to our hotels early in the morning. It is with a tinge of sadness that most depart on the Sunday. The feeling that people get from being shareholders of Berkshire Hathaway is not only that you can get wealthier, but perhaps also wiser and worldly. This appears to be an objective targeted by Buffett and reinforced at every opportunity. It has the effect of making the continuity of the company much more certain, but it is also likely to leave a deeper legacy long after Buffett and Munger are gone. I suppose in reality Berkshire Hathaway is not a company or thing. It is a way, and it's unlikely to be replaced. There are probably not many more years left for you to witness the event in its full glory. My advice to you is that even if you have to ride on a donkey for 20 days to get there, it will be worth the effort. To attend the meeting, you need to be a Class A or B shareholder. A shares currently trade at $84,000 and B shares $2,800. If you choose to become a shareholder, then I look forward to meeting you at the next AGM.